The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the very last episode, the final episode of Star Trek Discovery's first season, called Will You Take My Hand? I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Yet another basically meaningless title from first season Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
Howdy, Dom.
So before we get into it, I first want to tell everyone, make sure to join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest to 66866. That's StarQuest, one word, to 66866. And I want to tell you about another show on the network that you're sure to enjoy called Let's Science. Every 2 weeks, you'll get an episode of about 20 minutes or so, where you'll hear Caroline, Lindsay, and Lino talking about some topic in science that's usually a lot of fun. A recent episode talked about the science of Christmas foods. So check it out. One of the things they mentioned was that the average American consumes 7,000 calories on Christmas Day, which is a lot and plausible.
Not possible for me.
right. Jimmy, you're bringing that average down, so you can imagine how much some of us are eating.
As I
Right.
munched on some Christmas goodies right before recording this. So
That's right. So find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/science. So let's talk about this final episode of Star Trek Discovery's first season. Will you take my hand? Jimmy, do you have a recap for us?
In the first season finale of Star Trek Discovery, Emperor Giorgio has been put in command of the Discovery by Starfleet with the mission to end the war with the Klingons. Giorgio tells them that the plan is to use a drone to map a Klingon volcano network for a future Starfleet invasion of the Klingon homeworld, but the team learns that Giorgio is secretly planning to use a bomb to devastate the homeworld with the volcano network on orders from Starfleet. Michael confronts Admiral Cornwell with these facts, and the Discovery crew quietly mutinies with her to stop the plans from going forward. Since, adherence to Starfleet principles is more important than survival. Michael then gets the bomb's controls from Giorgio and gives them to L'Rell, so L'Rell can force the Klingons to stop their war on the Federation. Implausibly, this works, so Starfleet annuls the previous legal proceedings against Michael, reinstates her to her rank as commander, and gives everybody medals. Ash Tyler then goes off with L'Rell, Giorgio goes off as a rogue agent with her freedom, and the Discovery goes off to meet her new commander, Captain Pike of the Enterprise. The end.
So, apparently, it turns out that the plot of this particular episode was planned out well before the season began. This was where they always intended to go with this season. In fact, it was even more than plot. I think they even wrote this episode in basic form ahead of time. So they knew they wanted, from what I read, they knew they wanted the war to end with morally difficult choices, as they said, which is, do we end the war by dropping the A-bomb on the enemy or not?
And that's fine. I mean, they did that with the Dominion War in Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
I mean, the Founders' Plague that Section 31 created was crucial to winning that war.
Right. Although DS9, obviously, I think it's obvious, did a better job of dealing with these ambiguous moral choices in war than Discovery ever did.
They did. Also, I mean, I'm fine if you want to have your ambiguous choices, but it needs to be plausible. And this doesn't work because on the plausibility level, because they've number one, you blow up the Klingon homeworld. Well, I guess blowing up one of their moons actually kind of brought their empire to the ground. But you'd think they're a spacefaring race. Blowing up their homeworld will make them mad, but it will not cause them to suddenly lose.
Right.
Secondly, and this is the real implausibility, the main implausibility from my point of view, they have given Laurel no way to prove that the box she's got will really devastate their homeworld.
Yeah.
Because she either uses it or doesn't. If she uses it, the homeworld is blown up, in which case her threat is ended.
Yep.
If she doesn't use it, then she can't prove that it'll do what she says it'll do.
Right.
So if someone came up to me and said, submit to me or I'm going to blow up Earth with this box I've got, I would like something kind of, in the intermediate range to show me that you actually have this ability, because I can't just give up to every crazy box wielder I encounter.
Right. Like, that's what my note was. They laugh at her until she shows them a random piece of Federation technology that she claims is some kind of weapon. Like,
yeah.
We might as well capitulate because we are such, fearful, easygoing Klingons. Like, it's not even really in character for Klingons to kind of back down at that point either. It was.
Well, the whole bomb itself,
pat.
too, was just kind of secondary to everything else that was going on in the episode. And it was a hydro bomb. It wasn't even like a nuclear bomb or something like that. It was a water bomb. It would produce water.
Father Cory, it was a hydroxylic acid bomb, which sounds so much worse. For those who don't know, hydroxylic acid is just a chemical name for water. But it makes it sound worse.
It would have just... And the idea was it would have... Because the volcanoes were actually alive, the caldera was still alive, they would basically produce so much steam the planet would crack from the inside out. That was the whole plot of this. That's a lot of steam pressure.
They did at least have an accurate scientific term in this. Michael said that the bomb would create a phreatic explosion, and phreatic is the term for like an underground explosion involving involving subterranean water and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad they did their homework, at least in that part.
But it was still stupid.
Yeah.
It was still pretty dumb. Well, the other thing that mentioned sort of behind the scenes bit is they always planned to have the Enterprise show up at the end of this episode. That was the plan from the beginning, because they knew they'd have to explain how Burnham is Spock's sister, and Spock never mentioned her in all of the rest of Star Trek. So that was going to be the plan for season 2 from the beginning. So
actually, that's sort of a fan worry, but I don't see the real problem there. I mean, it is odd, and it's nice to have an explanation, although they gave us a stupid one at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
But we know next to nothing about the families of any of the original series characters. They were so focused on their jobs.
Yep.
They didn't give us detailed genealogies of these people.
Although, of anyone, we knew the most about Spock's family because we met his parents. I mean, we also had seen Kirk's brother was killed, so that was
that. We met Kirk's nephew, and but I mean, we know next very, very little. So I wouldn't have had a problem. Although, given that she's human, I mean, you can explain. I need an explanation for why Surak adopted her. Mm-hmm. I don't need an explanation for why Spock never mentioned her.
Right? Yeah, right, exactly. So the episode begins with Burnham giving this long voiceover about this on the eve of battle and the soldier and the general and fear. Is this something I couldn't find any reference to this as an old tale that they've adapted for this, or if the writer just wrote this whole thing?
I put it in the same category as the alleged ostensible historical stories that priests frequently begin homilies with.
What? You mean a priest, a rabbi, and a minister don't walk into a bar? Oh.
Well, yeah.
Well, they should more often.
So that's the subcategory that's meant to be funny, but the genre of priest beginning a homily with a story of dubious historicity to make some kind of spiritual point is a trope that I wish was taken out and squished like Mr. Sweet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That here's a hint to my brother priest: don't do that. People don't remember your homily; they remember your story.
Right.
But yeah, there's very true.
Tell me about the gospel. That's what I'm there for. Jesus was a genius parable writer. Most priests are not.
Exactly.
Just give me Jesus's parable. Tell me about that.
Well, see, the 12 Days of Christmas was a story made up as an underground catechism.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, far afield here. But so we get this whole opening sequence, and Giorgio has come over from the mirror universe, and Starfleet is so desperate that it's put Giorgio in charge of Discovery, pretending she is Captain Giorgio from the Shenzhou, and she acts really Terran as opposed to Starfleet. And we don't refer to those animals as having a home. Those Klingons are just animals, and like nobody raises an eyebrow at this.
Or they do a little bit.
Yeah,
they don't openly challenge her.
Right. Although Burnham does try to expose who she really is, on the bridge. Like, where are you from?
I think that's a warning shot across her bow. I don't think she's really trying to expose her. I think she's trying to give her a message that this illusion will not hold up unless you're more circumspect.
No, I agree with Jimmy on that too. It's just kind of like, shut up is basically what Burnham is saying.
Right.
I do like they established Giorgio as from Malaysia. That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In that she understands, she knows her own backstory that she can fit in.
And Pulau Langkawi is a real island.
Yes.
Right.
So Giorgio and Burnham, they try to get info about the Klingon homeworld, about Kronos from L'Rell, because they're looking for like a particular location. And she won't reveal it, even under torture, because Klingon.
This was so stupid. Yeah, I have in my notes, asking L'Rell where to land is stupid. Parentheses, can't trust, close parentheses.
Right.
I mean, she is a Klingon ideologue. She's not going to tell you where to land to carry out your secret anti-Klingon Starfleet mission. Not even if you beat her up is she going to do. You couldn't. She'll just make something up.
Exactly.
She's going to tell you the worst place to go.
Right.
Well, land right in the middle of the council chambers. That'll go well for you, Yeah.
Yeah. There's a base that I want you to go to. So they end up going to Ash because Tyler has all of Voq's memories. And there's this whole and
there's a little bit of subtlety in that. Yeah, it's interesting in that scene because what he says is he's willing. Ash still has Voq's knowledge, but he identifies as human, and he's willing to share Voq's knowledge for. And he means Michael, but he says Starfleet.
Right.
Yes. And it's this interesting duology. This is one of the more interesting aspects of this season was this duology in Tyler, who is Voq. There's no question that this guy is a Klingon named Voq, but he's been so messed with mentally that he's convinced I am this human guy named Ash Tyler who has the memories of another person called Voq. And that's an interesting character.
He's Swamp Thing still thinking he's Alec Holland.
Right.
right. Yeah, I mean, I find that an interesting. I mean, of all the characters, I found that interesting. Some of the extended mooning over things is less interesting to me, but as far as the character goes, it's interesting.
I found your brand new baby word duology interesting there. Duality is the one that already exists in England, but you've made an interesting contribution here. If it's based on typical Greek roots, duology would be the study of the number two.
Would it be, or two words? Would it be also two words? Because there's actually what I did was I took the word for a two books series of books. That's a book told in two stories, two volumes
instead of trilogy.
Duology. Yeah. I know. That's I have a talent for grabbing the malaprop. Anyway, I can sympathize when I've been like in Israel and I'm talking to Arabs, and Arabic and Hebrew are both Semitic languages. And if I'm trying to remember the Arabic word for something and I can't, I find myself instinctively reaching for the Hebrew word. Oops. And I have to stop myself. No, that's the Hebrew word. Let's not use that when we're talking to Arabs who may not be particularly friendly to Hebrew speakers. Right. That's true. That's much more dangerous a proposition, or much more difficult proposition. Anyway, Ash gives them the lowdown on where the volcanic chimneys are located. The The first one is like you said, Jimmy, in the middle of the High Council chamber, or actually, I think Father Cory said that, in the middle of the High Council chamber in the Capitol. That's not a good one. They end up finding this place that's an abandoned temple to Molor, which had an Orion settlement built over it. So Orion, sort of like you had in colonial era in Asia, we had like British settlements built in India, or like Macau or Goa with the Portuguese settlement, that sort of thing. So it's sort of like a trading post.
Yeah, and Molor was it's kind of Orion Town instead of like Chinatown.
Yes.
But Molor is a character from Klingon mythology that we've heard about ever since Next Generation. He was like the twin brother, if I recall correctly, of Kahless, who was his original rival, and then Kahless killed him.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if he was one of the gods that the Klingons killed. Apparently so.
Right. Yeah, there was a whole thing about Kahless killed the Klingon gods, and that's why they follow Kahless or something like that. So they go to the Orion settlement. They bring Tilly along at the request of Giorgio, who, for some reason, nostalgia for Captain Killy.
Yeah, she likes her. I see some similar potential in her. I like how Tilly is totally freaked out when she realizes it's Giorgio. I mean, it's the Emperor, and she realizes that really fast once they're alone, that you're the Emperor, Giorgio, aren't you?
Yeah.
And she's so unnerved, she reflexively starts to give her the Terran salute.
Yeah.
Where you hit your chest and stick your hand out. And Michael is like, don't do that.
Well, that was actually a really good moment. That was funny.
I like during that conversation where, of course, Tilly's like, no, I can't do it, not going to do it. And Giorgio's trying to convince her, calls her Killy.
Yes.
Just one point calls her Killy. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. She says, Giorgio tells her, you look so much like her. Younger, maybe, but all that killing ages a person. Then she says of her hair, oh, these are hideous, of course. And Tilly's like, yeah, I know. What's happening? It was such a good moment.
And then in the next scene, Killy no longer has the frizzy hair.
Yep.
Yes, she has. Her hair has been straightened for their voyage down to the surface. And so they end up walking through the marketplace. And I thought it was very interesting. At one point, they show someone like grilling. So like a marketplace food
Street
stand.
food.
Yeah.
Street food. And someone's grilling SETI eels. I don't know if you noticed that, but I backed up to look at it. They look very much like the SETI eels that Khan shoved into Chekhov's ear.
They were, yeah.
Okay.
And then someone else is grilling something that looks like big shark steaks, and Tilly eats it and says it's delicious until she finds out it's Gormagander.
Yep.
Right. Apparently, the actresses, the Sinequa,
Martin Green,
Burnham and Tilly, I forget the names. Anyway, the actresses are both vegetarians, and so I heard a very interesting interview with the onset caterer, I guess, who creates prop food for many shows, talking about how she created the prop food that looked just like meat, but it was made from like coconut and all these other things. And in fact, the actresses enjoyed it so much they wanted some for lunch later, even though they had to pretend they didn't like it. It was very funny. But it's interesting that idea of like prop food. You don't think about it, but that's an interesting part of things. So they go into this club at Giorgio's prompting, and Giorgio goes off and does something gross, and doesn't bear much talking about. But Ash and Burnham, they go to get some information, and Ash wants to play this Klingon craps. I guess it's sort of like a dice game, but Klingon, and very much like
it's called
eases.
It's called Destroy Them or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And he goes right back into character, like as in literally the sense of he becomes Vok. He gets the voice comes right out. He acts and behaves very Klingon-ish, and that really, makes Burnham recoil, like reminders her of who he really is. So, and then he kind of tries to say, well, look, I'm not becoming Vok. I'm just trying to ingratiate myself with them. And then she tells the story of her how her parents died, which doesn't match up with what they eventually do in the third
Next season?
the Red Angel. Yeah.
No, the Red Angel season. That's season 2.
Oh, okay. That's right. I get them confused. But it
Hmm.
doesn't exactly match up. Like, because from what she says here is the Klingons showed up, they killed her dad right away, and then took their time killing her mom as she watched, and then they sat down to eat the dinner that had been left on the table. But that's not, I don't recall that's what happened in season 2 when they showed it, is it?
No, because her mom survives.
Right.
But I forget if they have an explanation for that. But even if they don't, you could say this is her traumatic memory of
Yeah.
what happened. And she's believed her parents are dead, and this is the memory she made up to explain it.
Okay. Apparently, that whole idea of how Burnham's parents died came from a tie-in novel. It was interesting that they incorporated it back into the canon with the on-screen stuff. Then we get to see the actor who holds the record for the longest span of time from first appearance to most recent appearance in Star Trek, Clint Howard.
Best scene of the season right there.
So Clint Howard is Ron Howard's brother and Rance Howard's son, and he played the kid who drinks Tranya.
Yep.
Baylock.
Yeah.
In the Corbomite maneuver.
And in the original series, he's getting Captain Kirk and the others smashed on Tranya, and here he's getting Tilly smashed on volcanic smoke.
Yep.
That's right. 51 years between the two appearances. So
he's been in he was in Enterprise and DS9 both. I don't think he was in TNG though, but he was in those other two series.
Yeah.
He was also in Fringe, where he plays a crazy person who thinks that like Star Trek is real and the Romulans are invading.
Nice.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. I didn't remember that. I have to go watch Fringe again. He was only in those. He was in TOS, DS9, and Enterprise before this. So good on Clint Howard.
He definitely he always kind of plays different characters, but it's because he is kind of a different looking character to begin with. I mean,
yeah.
He's listed in the credits as Creepy Orion, and he plays that part well.
Yep.
Right, because Tilly gets high and knocked out, and she wakes up to him with a cutting device.
She doesn't do it willingly. She's initially trying to say no, but she realizes she's going to blow her cover if she doesn't go along and accept some of the smoke.
Yep.
Right. And she's got the drone control, which she thinks is the drone itself, but it's the bomb control handcuffed to her wrist. And she wakes up to him trying to cut the handcuff off. And she's like, hey, what are you doing? Cut it out. He's like, well, I'm an Orion. What do you expect?
Yeah, you were asleep. I'm an Orion.
Right. So so she escapes from that. That was actually a fun scene. They discover that this is where she opens the case and discovers that it's not a drone. It's a hydro bomb. Silliest explosive ever. And
it's like in Star Trek, Star Wars, where Han Solo is asking for a hydro spanner. You want a water wrench? Really? On your spaceship?
Well, maybe it's hydraulics for. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, it's a dumb term. Like parsecs as a time
distance.
Yes. So then we have Giorgio dropping the drone bomb inside the ruined temple down a well, and I saw someone point out a very interesting parallel there, where as in the very first episode of the series, you have the original Giorgio shooting a weapon into a well to end a drought and bring life through water. This Giorgio is dropping a weapon in a well to kill everything through water. So it's an interesting parallelism that they provided there.
It is. There's also an interesting, or I think conscious parallelism, and that one may be conscious, but I think there's another very conscious parallelism here in that in the original two-parter, Michael mutinied alone, which caused things to go very badly. And here she's learned how to mutiny together.
It's all about togetherness.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of amusing. Was everyone stepping up? But it's not mutinying against Giorgio in this case. It's mutinying against Cornwell,
Starfleet.
Because of the yes, they act in unison. Like this is wrong.
Michael has gotten more ambitious in her mutinying.
She mutinied to start a war. She's trying to mutiny to stop. To stop the end of the war, I guess, to keep the war going. It's the implication. There's also a moment where when she's talking to Ash after he did his Valk thing, she said, "I'm very upset right now." She tells him the story about how her parents died, and she says, "What bothers me isn't that I see you acting like a Klingon. What bothers me right now is I've started to see these Klingons as people, not just animals, like Giorgio had been talking about earlier. Because she had held on to the hate for so long, she had dehumanized them or depersonified them. I don't know how you desensitized.
I don't see a basis for her viewing Klingons more positively.
I think seeing them just living as regular people, not like soldiers or that sort of thing, but seeing regular Klingons. Yeah,
I don't think it's been set up right.
I don't think there's enough of that. Like, see families and kids walking in the market and that sort of thing would have been a little more convincing. But in any case, when they have the
go into the Klingon brawl bar where it's it's not really gonna unenforce the violent warrior enemy stereotype going through her head.
Exactly.
I went to a biker bar and now I see people as humans.
Yeah.
Not likely. So when they confront Cornwell and they have their little mutiny against Cornwell, she retorts, "We don't have the luxury of principles." And Burnham gets to say, "It's all we have." It's just such on the nose writing.
She gets some good speechifying in this episode.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
And by good, I assume that's ironic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. One of my thoughts was, because they have this medal scene where even though they've all just mutinied because they won somehow, they all get medals and promotions and things like that. And I'm going, Star Wars A New Hope did this medals thing so much better because they have Michael speechifying over the whole thing. And it's like, no, come on, just have a princess put medals on them with fantastic music and cut to credits. That's all.
Yeah.
That would be much better.
Right. I mean, even in previous Star Trek, movies where they've had medals given out, to Kirk and the rest, that sort of thing. I think that was in Star Trek 4. I think at the end of 4, because they saved Earth. They didn't have, again, this speechifying. They just gave them medals. And then there was talking afterward, which we have here. But it's like, you're right. I mean, they have to have Burnham standing on a soapbox all the time. So they get their medals. Everything is brought back to the awesome conclusion that everyone is now in good graces. That was a bit ironic. And then she meets with Amanda and Sarek outside the medal ceremony. Sarek admits that he originally agreed to the genocide plan, which is kind of, the genocide of the Klingons plan, which is kind of interesting.
It wasn't really. I mean, it would be horribly immoral, but it wouldn't have been genocide. There would have still been Klingons.
Right. Then Sarek's the one who gets to tell her that she's been pardoned and reinstated. She in the medal speech, actually, that's in my notes. She says we have to be torchbearers of the light, which is an interesting use of that term.
Yeah,
because that's what Vok said he was. I wonder if that was intentional.
I'm pretty sure it was. It was an attempt to be deep.
Yeah, they were evoking him.
Yeah.
Sorry for the pun. So they're sent off to Vulcan to go pick up their new captain, and but on the way they get a priority 1 distress call, and there's all kinds of dramatic. Who is this from, and what ship is coming to meet them? And I have to say, when I first saw this, it was actually kind of awesome to see the Enterprise swooping in like that and showing up, and I really did like seeing the Enterprise there. And what it does is it ushers in what's the best season of Discovery of all, anyway, which is the second season with Pike. But then they end with the Alexander Courage theme from the original series, which is also really nice ending. Although I kind of was hoping they would have like they did in the original series, where they put up pictures, like still images from the episodes, and they would put up an image of Clint Howard as the Orion, because that's how they always did in the original series was Baylock. That would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but
no, I agree with you, Dom. When I first saw this, a couple of years ago when it first was released, of course it's ticking off, N, C, see, of course, they got to amp up the drama by the data's coming through slowly. 1-7, and it's like as soon as it's 1701, it's like, oh no way,
Yeah.
And it was cool.
That
it
was
was
kind
cool.
of awesome. Yeah. So, that's what I have. Father Cory, any notes on this episode?
Nothing else here. I'm glad we're done with the first season of Discovery.
Yeah. And Jimmy, how about you?
Which means we're really kind of done with Discovery in any substantial form, because we're not doing the fourth season episode by episode.
No.
Yeah, and as that seems to have borne out, as I think Father Cory has been watching it as episode by episode as I have been, and not really all that impressed by it.
Yeah, as we record this, we're kind of in the middle of the season, and it's there's not even enough plot to talk about it episode by episode, not even talking about how bad the episodes are.
The standing around emoting at one another has reached a fever pitch.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, there's interesting elements, but yeah.
One thing I wanted to give Discovery a bit of credit for, compared to other Star Trek series, is the fact that we have these shifting captains. Because we start out with Lorca, and then we have an interim captain of Saru, and then we get Captain Pike, and then we have Saru as interim captain again, and then we have Burnham in the fourth season. And while that's rapid for real life commands, you don't have a static crew throughout the lifetime of a military vessel. You have officers coming and going, including the captain. And you're typically going to be assigned, and it'll vary from service to service how long your hitch is, but you're typically going to have a captain be assigned for a certain period of time, and he's not going to stay there the rest of his career. He's either going to move up or out. And so having this turnover in captains is actually a bit more realistic than what we've seen in other Star Trek series.
Right.
What's interesting too is when the series started, one of the big selling points, the shticks, was we're not going to be following the captain of the crew. We're going to be following another member of the crew. Like our viewpoint character is going to be, and it turned out to be Burnham. But by the fourth season, they've kind of given up on that, and Burnham is now the captain. They're just kind of like, you got to follow a captain. That's just makes it, if your setting is a ship, a military ship, let's be honest, the captain is going to be the most interesting character because they're going to be involved in the most interesting things going on. So,
I mean, the way Star Trek is set up, but not the way Stargate is set up.
Right.
Because General Hammond is the commander, but we focus on the away team.
Right.
I guess with Stargate, I would, Hammond feels more like, he's general, so he feels like more of like an admiral, but he's in every episode, so it's
Pretty
right.
Close.
You're right.
Pretty close.
Yeah, he's not our viewpoint character. Our viewpoint characters are the away team.
Right.
Well, and the obvious Star Trek counterpoint to that is also Lower Decks, which follows non-bridge officers. Yeah. So I take that point. You could do an interesting series that doesn't follow the captain, I guess. Yeah. Well, in any case, that does bring to a close our discussion of Discovery. And I haven't heard if there is going to be a season 5 of Discovery. To be honest, I'm kind of hoping they're done with Discovery and they can shift those resources to other Star Trek stuff.
That might be more enjoyable. Like
yes.
Everything else they've done in the new Star Trek era is more enjoyable than this.
Yes. There's the Michelle
even Picard.
Yeoh. Right. For whatever criticisms we have, it has been better. There's the Michelle Yeoh Section 31. Yeah, series that they talked about. That would be
the Strange New Worlds Captain Pike series.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. That I hope that's really good. And this talk, and who knows, that looking at what Disney has done with Star Wars on Disney Plus, looking at what Marvel has done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that they've got this property that they really should be doing more with, and so there's talk of even more Star Trek in our immediate future, movies and TV shows. So it would be interesting to see. Hopefully, I'm kind of hoping they bring in some new blood to run things and maybe have a little different focus of their attitude toward Star Trek.
Or some old blood. Bring back Ira Stephen Bear and Ronald Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that. Even with like, I don't agree with Ira Stephen Bear's take on a lot of things, but DS9 was the best series.
I know, I agree. And unfortunately, there would be woke flaws in any modern series, but if there would be better storytelling.
Exactly.
That's right. I could deal with it. Yeah.
And by the way, I did find, I'm just doing real quick search on Google that they're planning for season 5, but it has not been officially renewed yet. That's the best I can find. So,
I wonder if they're holding back to see how this season does as a whole, as
exactly
viewership.
But yeah, I agree that it would be nice to see a change in leadership in the Star Trek TV series now. Kind of like Doctor Who, because we're talking Doctor Who, that there's going to be a new showrunner here. Well, a returning showrunner in a couple of years. And it might be nice to see Star Trek kind of take the same idea of, okay, it's time. We've been doing this for a while. It's time to refresh.
I wonder, like, Discovery had a really difficult beginning. They had, they started creating it, then they went back to the drawing board, and they had the previous showrunner leave and come back. And maybe do you think that had an impact on whether, on the lifetime of the show and how the problems it has, or would those problems have been there regardless, given how they set it up?
It's hard to say, but some of them certainly would have been there from how they set it up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the just visual turnoffs was, we've got to have new, different looking Klingons. No, we don't.
Yeah.
Not if it's at best a lateral trade.
Right. At best. Yeah. It never made sense to me why they did it, except for novelty's sake.
So many things we complain about in season 4 that you and I, Dom, have discussed offline about season 4 have been here in their infancy here in season 1. They are very much a part of the DNA of the show, and that's been kind of our continuing complaint. Season 2 kind of broke that mold a little bit, but it was still there. And then season 3 and 4, they just ramped it back. So I think the problems with the showrunners affected season 1. We've talked about that many times before, but not to the level that it affected the entire series. I kind of got the feeling when they first started talking about Discovery, that it was meant to be kind of a, let's reboot the idea of having Star Trek TV series, and then it's going to go away eventually. And so maybe that's the plan. That was the plan all along. But of course, if they're talking about, again, doing a season 5, that they haven't decided yet when they're going to make it go away.
I think there was originally like a 5-year plan for the series that the original showrunner had, that kind of they've actually adhered to, because it was going to involve Discovery jumping forward through time. And so I don't know how off course they are. I think part of the problem, it's not simply all the political junk that's in this, the culture war stuff. That's there, but I think it's also it's partly the generation of writers.
Yeah.
I think that broadly speaking, they're younger writers, and they have this kind of therapeutic, fragile, woke approach to things that is just out of step with the heroic brand of fiction that Star Trek involves. And that's why that's why we have all this togetherness nonsense and emotional therapy going on screen instead of straight ahead storytelling. Because I think has been a generational shift in America, at least. I can't say for other countries, but in America, at least, the generation that are now young adults lived a much more sheltered existence than previous generations, and they have not been encouraged to stand on their own 2 feet and deal with their own problems. They have been encouraged to rely on others and have a kind of constant stream of affirmation and therapy happening.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I already hear them going to their keyboard to object. Well, not me, of course. This is a generalization.
This is not everybody, but there has been a characteristic of the generation that is currently young adults, and they're the ones who are getting the entry-level TV writing gigs in Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, the Gen X storytelling had its issues as well. There were some clear problems with things made by that generation. I think it evens out over time, and so hopefully, as this generation, young generation of writers grows, they will even out some of this aspect of their writing personality.
Maybe, but on the other hand, I mean, these things do tend to self-correct unless your civilization destroys itself. But the way they tend to correct is you encounter some big, huge tragedy that forces people to become self-reliant again. I mean, the Depression did that.
Yeah,
that's why our grandparents' generation was the way it was, because
and
they
then
lived,
World War II. Yeah.
They lived through the Depression and World War II, and they had to be very self-reliant and not super squishy, therapeutic, fragile people. And I don't know because the super squishy, therapeutic, fragile people model is enabled by conditions of peace and prosperity. And when peace and prosperity go away, people have to toughen up and become self-reliant.
Right.
And as to the extent our society remains peaceful and prosperous, we may get ever more fragility on the part of people, because they're not having to confront life lessons that would cause them to toughen up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, if you're literally fighting for survival, whether it's due to like the Great Depression, the war, whatever it might be, poverty, you're not worried about somebody else's feelings, and they're not worried about yours.
When it's really survival time, it's like, we have to survive. I don't give anything about your feelings right now.
Yeah.
This is not time for therapy. This is time for saving our butts.
Let's make sure we've got enough food to survive. Let's make sure we got shelter, all this stuff, and then we'll talk about your feelings. You know.
Yeah. So has there been something, we're kind of getting a far field from Star Trek, but has there been something for boomers or Xers that would be like something that the greatest generation dealt with? I don't think so.
Nothing. I mean, 9/11 could have been if things had gone much worse, and we had gotten into an active World War IV after that.
Right.
But it didn't end up going that way. It turned out that America was so resilient as a society that the war on terror ended up largely being a distraction. And I mean, it for all the sacrifice and everything that was made in that, America went on humming in a way it did not have the option to do during the Great Depression or World War II or the Civil War.
Right.
And so this generation hasn't been confronted by tough realities. They've always been sheltered.
And I would argue that for boomers and Gen X's, that just the background of the Cold War being a stress on their generations did help as far as, putting things in more in proportion. That isn't there today, because, let's be honest, we when we think of our military, we think of it's pretty much it might not do too well in places like Afghanistan, but nobody's going to attack the homeland.
Hopefully.
Right.
Hopefully. That should be a concern, but
give it 20 years and if things are mismanaged as badly as they have been recently,
right,
you got to look out for those things.
Yeah, so, right now no sane leader attacks, but
but I mean, so I mean, our generations, again, the boomers, the Gen X's, which we're all kind of in that range. We've had that kind of that background, but it's been background noise. It hasn't been something right immediate in our face for much of it, anyways. But that's not even there now.
It would be tough to explain to younger generations the existential dread that kind of was a background noise of the Cold War and mutually assured destruction, that sort of thing. So
because Russia during the Cold War was one push of a button and boom.
And we came close to some button pushing a few times.
On both sides. And now Russia is, Russiagate. They messed with not to get into the politics of it, but that's the narrative of they messed with our elections. That's about as bad as Russia's gotten.
Everybody messes with everybody's elections.
Exactly. Yeah. We've messed in Russia's elections, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Way more than Russia's.
Yep.
So bringing this back to the Star Trek, though, that I think that going forward, we've got second season of Picard. We've got the promise of we have a second season of or third season of Lower Decks coming. We've got the promise of Strange New Worlds, all somewhere in 2022. We've talked about this before. So those are all coming. Look at, and of course the second half of the season of Prodigy as well. So
Exactly.
those are all coming. We'll be talking about all of those things. In fact, I think this episode drops after we've talked about Prodigy. We're recording these in advance, so I think you'll hear our discussion of those next 5 episodes of Prodigy before you hear this anyway.
Next time on Star Trek Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
that episode we recently recorded where they with the Husnak, whatever that was called.
Oh, Survivors.
Yeah. That's essentially get off of my lawn.
Yeah.
Literally get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. We promise not to be grumpy old men all the time. This is so much good Star Trek to talk about too. And that's the thing is I love having new Star Trek, but I love talking about the old stuff too. I want to get into more of this, DS9's Dominion War stuff and all that, the later seasons of TNG. There's a lot of good Star Trek out there to talk about.
There's still a lot of TOS I haven't seen, so I'm looking forward to when we can get into those.
I mean, Spock's Brain is coming up.
I haven't seen it, but I know about that one.
The theory,
there's still a lot of good.
One of the best theories that I've read, just to keep it in mind, is that because it was by Gene Kuhn, and Gene L. Kuhn was a fantastic writer for Star Trek. Yep. He was really good. And the theory is, or one of the theories is, that Spock's Brain was meant to be parody. And because it was meant to be a humor episode, and because of shifts that were happening with the showrunner, and Freddie Freiberg ended up coming in as the third season showrunner, that it didn't end up working the way it was intended.
That would have been a much better episode if they had a little of clarinets of humor in there at different points. That would have worked better.
Yeah, because humor could work on Star Trek. I mean, The Trouble with Tribbles and Shore Leave and things like that. And Spock's Brain was meant to be a kind of parody, is the claim, but it got messed up in the execution because Kuhn wasn't directly involved,
and they played it too straight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, let's wrap things up here and wrap up our discussion of Discovery here. And we do want to stop to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Trek, including Ryan, Tobias B., Olivia A., Zach G., and Matthew C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we, of course, like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you think of Will You Take My Hand, this last episode of Discovery's first season. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, or our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the original series episode, The Squire of Gothos, and we answer the question, is he Q? Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Don't overpromise what we're going to be able to answer.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, hail from Captain Pike, sir. It's the USS Enterprise.